it does become like political, where there's just like things are bad in this way that I kind of don't blame some of the kids. I keep talking about the kids. I just turned 31 last week or whatever, so I'm saying the kids all the time. But I don't really blame them to like there's like the just like the state of the world is so like, especially the state of the US is like so twisted that they like aren't necessarily worried about like, where's my band gonna play? Like there's like bigger fish to fry.
This is White Centipede Noise Podcast, where we give language to noise. I'm Oscar Brummel, and today my guest is Jacob Winans, a New York-based artist deeply rooted in multiple East Coast scenes, who diligently tours the U.S. and abroad with a punk ethos. His noise work often utilizes makeshift and broken digital systems, giving a raw, almost primitive edge to computer music. Jacob's recordings carry an autobiographical weight, and his discography includes numerous releases on No Rent Records, as well as Flag Day Recordings and Industrial Coast, among others. This is part one of the episode with Jacob. The full-length episode is on Patreon, along with our entire archive of full-length episodes, exclusive WCN TV content, and much more. If you'd like to support White Centipede Noise Podcast and get more from it, visit patreon.com/whitecentipedeNoise. Thank you to all of our current and past Patreon supporters who make this project possible. White Centipede Noise Podcast is sponsored by Rural Isolation Project. Visit ruralisolationproject.com, ruralisolationproject.bandcamp.com, or look out for them at a distro near you. Welcome, Jacob.
Hello.
Welcome to White Centipede Noise Podcast here at WCN Studios. You just played an in-studio set. You are in Europe for like what seems to be kind of a little personal vacation mixed with some shows.
Yeah. This is a style I enjoy.
Yeah. You've done it a few times.
Yeah, I did it last year. This one just kind of happened sort of serendipitously, but yeah, I did it last year, like kind of almost like the exact same time frame. But yeah, mostly just seeing people, checking stuff out. But like, yeah, a couple shows peppered in here.
Tell me just kind of about your, I guess, a little about your background and affiliation. You're living in New York City right now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of associate you with like East Coast scenes. And East Coast is like interesting because it has so many different cities quite close to each other and different scenes that are kind of individual and unique. There's some crossover. There's some like separation, it seems also.
Yeah, there's some differences. But yeah, I feel like did a tour of the West Coast over the winter. And that was the first I'd experienced how like, I mean, just like physically everything is so far from each other.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like way more just kind of like different zones. Like Portland is really seemingly really different. Obviously very different than like the Bay or something like that.
Right. I kind of associate you with No Rent in a lot of ways. They've put out numerous releases by you. Yeah. Which have been like CDs, and I kind of see those as like album style releases in some way.
Yeah, album style, more like a longer form like piece or something like that. It's supposed to like a tape could be like a touch more of like an experiment of like something on each, like, just like one long thing on each side. But yeah, the like CD stuff, specifically the ones that did for No Rent, are a lot more like each track is way more refined and like put a lot more, not energy, but like, I don't know. Yeah.
Do you feel like storytelling is a part of what you do in terms of your work, like your compositions?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's like a huge part of it. Is like there's like a memoir quality to the whole thing and stuff like that. But yeah, specifically on the like the longer form CD stuff, there's like there's supposed to be much more of like a tape has like an arc or whatever. I guess you could say it's like more like a scene or something like that, or like a smaller. I don't know what it'd be like, but yeah, that's like more kind of like individual scenes that can like play off of each other and do like one like referencing something earlier back around and stuff like that.
Yeah, that I think is like an underrated and under discussed like difference in like analog formats like a vinyl or a tape versus a CD and or just like a digital album is that unlimitedness of the runtime, and also like not having that break in the middle.
Yeah.
Like I feel like an LP or something like that, or a tape that already like forces you to think in a certain way.
Totally. Yeah. It's like it's a very set structure of two pieces. I guess, I mean, an LP you can break up into tracks, but it's still, there's like side A, side B, that whole thing. But yeah, CD, you can really do whatever you want in terms of storytelling. Or
what, before we talk about your records, what is your like history with No Rent and those guys? Were you living in Philly?
I lived in Philly, but I met them before that. I think was really big, like Jason's work a lot.
Yeah.
And I was a really big Reverse Baptism fan. But this project, I was in Sibling. That was like this like power electronics project, I guess. When I was like 21, 22 or something. We played a show with Jason in Providence, and they offered us a tape on No Rent that we never finished. But eventually I've been like working on like, that was like the first like they put out my like first solo release at all. I'd always like worked on stuff and had a couple things on like a Bandcamp somewhere or whatever like that. But I like finally finished something that was like, oh, this would maybe be a cool whatever, and sent it to them, and they've been really supportive ever since.
Was that Delaware?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, that was the first solo thing I ever did.
Okay. So I've like seen your, because I think I remember when that came out, like a senior start then.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah, that was the start. Or yeah, that first project, that first Sibling project was definitely like the start. And that was like the first tours I ever went on and all that stuff like that. But as a solo thing, yeah, Delaware was the first one.
Cool. It seems like Delaware is a more traditional harsh noise release in some way. Like when I revisited it recently before you came over, I was kind of surprised that it sounds a lot like a lot of just kind of like analog noise. Whereas like your later stuff, I know you really incorporate, let's say laptop or but digital means of processing. And I didn't hear that as much on that release, even if it was there, but like the stuff that came afterwards, it's very different.
Yeah. That one. Yeah. That was like kind of, I think that was just because it was like kind of early experimentation of it. And I just liked a lot of kind of pedal smashy, harsh noise stuff. And also I feel like I kind of had a thing of, I said that earlier about how I'm like sort of, for making arguably computer music, like sort of computer illiterate. So like there's a lot of the kind of like computer music glitchy stuff like that I just like wanted to make, but I didn't have like any like the idea of like plugging in a pedal, like a pedal board and shaking it around and stuff like that made sense. But like there's like such like a wall to like, I'm like, I don't know how to use all this programming and stuff like that. And I still don't really. But like so I feel like that like I kind of had to like warm up to it.
There are 4 new CDs out now on White Centipede Noise. Spallmaker, 1984 Kart PPG Detroit News Grand Prix 200. Pain Appendix and Tantric Death, Satan's Imperials. Death Kneel, Absolute Earthbound Spirits. Wince, self-titled and vasovagal syncope reissue. Available to order at whitecentipedenoise.com or at whitecentipedenoise.bandcamp.com. Soon available at an international distro near you. I feel like one of the reasons maybe that noise is so like appealing to people is that you get to almost like enter this childlike state where if someone shows you like a contact mic and you figure out how to plug it into some loud like amps and distortion pedals, like just being able to like touch a small thing and make this huge crazy sound is like really invigorating and like empowering. And like, can you get that same kind of feeling from working digitally?
Yeah, I think I can, but I've thought about this. It is different. And there's also, sometimes I feel like it's like, if I'm playing, and I also like always like, I'm slightly embarrassed of like what I look like when I'm playing, because I getting all like hot and upping and all that stuff. But yeah, I think the sound, I feel like I can just get like excited about the sound to a point that it's like, yeah, it's the same sort of thing. But it is like, yeah, there is something about analog gear where it's like just this machine that you're like pressing a button versus, dragging and dropping a file or whatever. Like there is something like, I feel like more satisfying.
But imagine if you have, imagine it must really depend on the setup, because some processing that I've done, for example, with computer, it's like you do a bunch of stuff and you press like click and render.
Yeah.
And then you wait 10 minutes or something like that. And then you play it back and it's like, oh, this sounds great.
Yeah.
But that's not the same as being able to.
Yeah. I kind of avoid that in my like process or whatever. I do use a lot of, once again, the computer literacy, it's like a lot of just like dumb files that like, or programs that like don't even have a record function in them. So, and just like running them through that like audio hijack program that just like rips the audio for like some sort of weird DJ software, some like busted like synth, like HTML synth looking thing or whatever. But it's like, yeah, it needs to, for me at least, to get stuff, it needs to still have that like playable ability or whatever.
Yeah.
And then in like the editing, there is that, but it's even then it's like more like set played pieces, and then the editing is just kind of like putting them together.
Yeah.
As much as possible. Which I do think it is satisfying in like a longer form way of like, you're like, oh, I finally got that screech to turn into that or whatever, but it's not the same like I'm jamming out,
playing like an instrument.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But it does seem like when you were like when you played just now, I mean, at the same time, it shouldn't be any different necessarily, because you have a whole range of buttons and things you can manipulate. And I think also, like you said, you're kind of maybe computer literate, but I think you're using it. Well, we talked about we won't mention the artist's name, but you talked about an idea that someone had that was like playing a set that was like opening and closing.
Oh yeah,
thousands of
or it wasn't even an idea. It was just like a
QuickTime files.
Yeah, a misunderstanding, which I've also seen someone do actually really effectively. But yeah, like it was a misunderstanding that someone's set was just hitting play and turning off like 50 QuickTime files. Yeah, and then later explained that that's actually just a program that looks like that, but it's way more complicated.
Okay, but just like the fact that you can abuse. Like you can abuse like a computer the same way you can abuse like a guitar.
Yeah, totally.
Maybe it's more expensive and more like fragile.
Yeah. Well, I guess there's a lot of like in the editing, like breaking a file, or like, especially early on, I was really into the setting in Audacity with like the raw data input, where you could input a photo or something like that. And then it doesn't really know what to do with it. So it just makes this white noise, which I later learned, depending on the photo, if you like stretch it really long, it's like stereo. It's and it's like, it just sounds like, then you stretch it for, and make it an hour long. And there's like little sounds like left and right that change.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
But like, what was I saying? But yeah, there's something to say about like, breaking things like digitally in a similar way to like destroying a guitar or something like that.
I suppose like I think of computers as being wholly inexpensive and whatever, but in this day and age, I suppose they're like at least digital machines like cell phones and things like that and laptops.
Oh yeah.
Like the ultimate trash.
Yeah, they expire so quickly that you can get. I have like a stack of various broken laptops that have just come into my possession somehow. Like,
so the album on No Rent, There's Something in the Backyard. Tell me about that album. What the title is referencing, and to me, that's a very narrative album.
Mm-hmm. It's a really good. That's actually a very good story. That's a freaky story.
Yeah.
And this is true. This is 100% true. That title comes from. It was the very beginning of COVID lockdown, or maybe even COVID lockdown, and I was moving. I had like kind of fucked my life up and was like staying with my parents for a second. I was like 20 something, and then COVID started, and I was like still working, and I was worried about getting family members sick, like blah blah blah, whatever. So I took a room at Cold Spring Hollow, which is like a really kind of legendary, spooky, haunted house, like it's in Belchertown, Massachusetts. It's like the house is older than it was built before America was a country. It's like so old. And there's like a bunch of people. It's a different crew there now, but like Eric Brown, just Scald Him lived there. Dan Greenwood, Diagram A, a bunch of people. Like it's been like, and then like years and years before that, like other people in like different noise. It's been like a different like.
Is it like a punk house?
It's like it's gone through different things, but yeah, it's like a punk house. But then it had like eras of being just like noise centric. Now I think it's like Gabber kind of vibe, which seems to be like a thing.
But it's like a DIY house.
Yeah. It's just been a show space for like 15 years or something like that. It's cool, and it's just like, and I lived there for a year. And it is like one of the like gnarliest. Like it is just falling into it's crazy. It's so messed up. But anyways, I was gonna move in there. I think I had maybe just moved in or was like figuring my stuff out, and I got a phone call at my partner's house at the time. My partner's still my partner. This phone call from an unknown number. There was like this woman's voice, and she was like, "Are you or have you ever been a resident of Cold Spring Hollow?" And I was like, "Yeah, I just moved in there." I also like played there a bunch before, like hung out there all the time. And she's like started like kind of rambling like with all this stuff, and she's like, "I used to live there in like the 90s, and I saw stuff, and like it's super haunted and freaky in there." She's like, "I saw things there, I felt things there, and I'm like really worried about the people who live there. Like I'm worried that people are in danger there." And I was like, what is this? And then I was like, "What do you mean?" And she's like, "There's just like something going on there. There's something." And then she's like, "There's something in the backyard." And then hung up the phone. And I've never got an explanation. Like if it was someone messing with me, if it was really, really, really weird. And I still have never figured out what it was. It was like a fully just like one of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me. And then I recorded that album there over the course of like lockdown and the various traumatic things that came with lockdown and like stuff like that. And then I named it after that. I was like, also, I feel like within like 10 minutes of that, after I was like, I was like, that's a good title for something.
Yeah. I mean, I sensed like a very strong horror vibe.
Yeah. It's a spooky place. It's like a really, it's like we would joke living there about like how like the way it's set up is it's like the house is here. It's this huge like old kind of mansion. Then you park your car like way behind it, like in these woods that are like really spooky woods. And like we would joke about how like every single person, like when you park your car, you just like run to the house, like no matter what. There's just like everyone just like no. Yeah, it's really, and yeah, that was like kind of unintentional. It wasn't like I was setting out to be like I'm making like a horror, a ghost record. It was just like that's just kind of like the sounds of that whole
the reality
place. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's really cool. It was like cool because also it's like it'd been a show space for like so long that there's just so like a lot of the stuff used on the album is just like gear that I found, like distortion pedals or whatever that have just like piled up and like been like left by bands over like so it was a really fun weird place to spend like lockdown because it's just like endless broken gear in like the middle of the woods. And
what was it that drew you to the kind of gear you use, that as opposed to like sticking with like pedal noise or sticking with getting into like like a modular or something like that? Like what was it about these systems?
Money
Yeah.
was the main thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, for much of my adult life I've been really, and my younger life, but I've been really broke and was like not like I never like a lot of my gear is just kind of like nowadays I buy more stuff, but for like years it was kind of just whatever came into what like someone had an old mixer and they're moving and they gave it to me, or finding stuff on the street or whatever, which I kind of liked like as a practice. I think like I thought it was just kind of cool to make things out of stuff that you find, and there's like maybe something kind of like spiritual or whatever. It's like weird of like, oh, it comes to you, whatever. But yeah, largely it was just like whatever was on hand for a long time, and then like learn certain things, and then eventually it was like, okay, I'll buy this, I'll figure that out. But anyways, so moving to like what's the question? To like
like what drew you to using a laptop basically?
Yeah, well, that was also just like kind of accessibility, where it's like couldn't buy a modular rig, couldn't buy, I don't know, couldn't buy some pedals or whatever. Like, but then you can try to get as close to the sounds that you like just on like a shitty computer and work on the whole thing. And I also am drawn to like, I really like digital distortion sounds, like the stuff on the more like, I don't know, I like the birdseed era White House more than the old stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm like that team.
Yeah, sure. That's cool. Yeah, you have a cool White House hat too.
Oh yeah.
The spiritual connection of using found and old gear. Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if it's like spiritual exactly. Going back to that house, there is something cool about like that house had a bunch of stuff that like I just found, and then like there's this one just like Boss distortion pedal with like the faceplate taken off so you could like tap it in and out and stuff like that I found out was like Jeff Hartford Noise Nomads like he like posted a picture of it or something, and it like turned out to be like his first distortion pedal he ever bought or whatever. So there's like something cool about finding things, but then there's also something cool of like the kind of hand me down thing in the scene or the practice or whatever I think is cool, where it's just like, because like I don't know, also I feel like not everyone, but it's like a lot of like messy, wacky people that like their stuff, it's like my stuff ends up all over the place, people's stuff ends up all over the place.
I feel like I feel like going back to the East Coast thing, I feel like that's an East Coast thing.
Yeah.
That's an East Coast phenomenon. I don't know, I've never spent that much time out there outside of like New York City, but it seems like these like really close clusters of people, and they move between them a lot.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of like places and relationships kind of like coming together and then like dissolving.
Totally.
But all kind of spreading around the same general area.
Yeah, there's the kind of like, and I've lived in 3 of the 4, I guess, but there's like the like New York, Philly, Baltimore, Richmond, kind of like, it's a really easy tour route because it's like, I don't know, the longest drive is like 2.5 hours and you can just do that whole thing. And yeah, I feel like it's really easy to move between those places if you need to or whatever. And yeah, I lived in Baltimore really briefly. I lived in Philly for exactly a year, like July 1st to July 1st. And it is cool. Yeah, there's like kind of this like, there's kind of like a core crew, but I feel like there's a lot of like someone comes in, someone comes out of that, and it shares a lot of ideas. And
do you think that has plays a role in the artistic creative output of those places?
Yeah, I think so. I think
a certain identity.
Yeah, or maybe it like, I don't know. I feel like a lot of people have like, because I think like so like even when people don't necessarily say this specifically, but a lot of noise is autobiographical, and then like it's usually something outside of just like checking out a city that brings you to that city. So I feel like someone has like their Philadelphia era, their Richmond era, their whatever. Or at least maybe I'm just talking about myself, but I think other people would agree with this.
I mean, like it's it's abstract sound, and if we're just talking about the sound particles, a lot of it sounds similar.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're not like using a lot of lyrics or discrete melodies or things like that. But somehow I think a lot of personal life stuff,
Yeah,
let's just
absolutely.
say, goes right into it.
Yeah,
and people don't really talk about it besides maybe a reference on track title or
exactly,
whatever, or like a bunch of buried field recordings or whatever that have some sort of
significance or something like that. Yeah, I think a lot of people do that. I mean, I do that a lot. There's a lot of recordings that are, I mean, and also like even unintentionally, like, you know, sometimes there'll be some kind of recording that's like, this is a sentimental thing to whatever, but also it's even just like by nature of like where you were when you took that recording. Like, so it's like, yeah, I heard a cool squeaky door, but then what else were you doing that day when you heard that cool squeak? Like, it's kind of like unavoidable to like, you know what I'm saying? I think.
Yeah. Do you hear that in other people's work?
This is the end of part 1 with Jacob. The full conversation goes on for another 45 minutes and is available at Patreon. That's also where you'll find the entire archive of full-length episodes and much more exclusive noise content, supported directly by the people who make this project possible. If you want to hear the rest and help keep this podcast going, check out patreon.com/whitecentipedeNoise. Thank you.